Welcome once again to another presentation of Cinema One and Only. This is our index presentation for April 24th through April 30th. You're listening to the Native American flutes, meditation music. We start our playlist off this week like we usually do with the Leo King. We've added a few new sections. You should check these out. A few more songs to set the mood. Trying to put this song together. Listen to it once every week. Helps you to remember the words. Is this Elvis? We spent some time with John Sebastian again this week. Being the time of year that we reminisce with the Woodstock concert. I have permission to use this conversation with my dad about John Sebastian, the early days. I put this on because this is a history that John talks about his early days and how he got together with the Lovin' Spoonful, got into the entertainment business, and this is going to be one of the last weeks we spend on Woodstock. John Denver, it's full concert. Some great music on there. Again, songs that you'd like to learn. These are all musical songs and selections that we've heard on TV or in concerts, and possibly might learn some of these. Classical Gas. These are all Dan Holloway instrumentals. Anybody that wants to learn to play guitar, these are good songs to learn. Aerial views from a drone of the area where we live, which leads us into views of areas where we don't live. Any place all over the world, seeing different cultures and a little time to appreciate where we live. The Lord's Prayer brings us into our spiritual section, where each week we have topics that we follow from week to week. This is part one of an explanation of the Middle East situation with David Icke. And this is part three of an explanation of what gravity is. You can check these out for yourself. We're going to be reading about the Emerald Tablets pretty soon. I think next week Gerald Clark is going to read the Emerald Tablets. So we see what the Emerald Tablets are all about this week. BP Earthwatch started reading the Book of Adam and Eve last week. We have part two this week. Matthew LaCroix is doing the Anunnaki series, and this is the third week. And this particular week is interesting It covers the birth of Noah, and we're going to be delving into that a little bit more. We have tablets 2 and 3. We had tablets 1 last week of the Enuma Elish, and chapter 5 of Zechariah Sitzin's book, The End of Days. And after all that, we need a little music. Excellent violin music by a number of contemporary artists. And we finish up with the Woodstock era again, back to 1969 with Joe Cocker and the Fish, Country Joe and the Fish, Santana. We'll be hearing more from Santana as the weeks go on. Fleetwood Mac. Then we get into the cinema section, movies, radio shows, and TV shows over the last 100 years. Concentrating this week a little bit more on the short subjects before the movies and the previews that were included. Some of the animated features. The Little Rascals, we have another color short. This is a Shirley Temple movie. Little Miss Broadway. Extremely good. And a comparative to the original Our Gang group is the 12th silent Our Gang movie from the early 1930s. And we spend a little bit of time going through the Three Stooges shorts this week because we have Curly, Larry, and Moe to Shemp, Larry, and Moe, back to Curly, only because this is in color, but we have a special movie, Three Stooges movie, with Adam West, who played Batman, and this version of the Three Stooges is the most recent and the last version, other than the animated version, which still starred Moe, Larry, and Joe DeRita, the last of the Three Stooges to join the ranks. Our series section this week is going back to Charlie Chan, but the original first Charlie Chan, Warner Oland. The 1931 movie with Bela Lugosi started that all. We have 3 selections. And to compare a 1935 Warner Oland to a 1945 Sidney Toiler Charlie Chan. And we're doing the same thing with Sherlock Holmes. Arthur Wagner was the first actor to play Sherlock Holmes, 1931. We have 3 selections this week, and we'll be continuing both these features next week. Compare them to Basil Rathbone. I heard somebody call him Basil Rathbone. Tomato, right? Sherlock Holmes on the radio brings us into our radio section with musical Smiley Burnette, The Sons of the Pioneers. And this is the first week we are missing a Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy show. And in place of that, We have Abbott and Costello, who used to be part of the Chase and Sanborn Hour, which featured Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. We have a selection from 1946 that came about on this week, April 25th, and a selection from 1947 on April 24th. And W.C. Fields, who also appeared on the Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy show, is featured in the movie Poppy from 1936. And from that time era, this is one of the last movies that Jerry Lewis made with Dean Martin in 1956. And we can't forget our ventriloquist, Darcy Lynn Farmer, Jeff Dunham, and this Donald Trump clip is hilarious. We got 3 of these in this week. And Ray Allen is back, which brings us up to the Comic Weekly Man with Hopalong Cassidy. And we continue Hopalong in the movies with 3 selections this week. And Chapter 6 of Phantom Empire with Gene Autry. Chapter 2 of The Three Musketeers. And we have a Three Musketeers movie from 1936. Followed by Roy Rogers' 1942 movie, The Man from Cheyenne. Then we get back to the TV series with Hopalong Cassidy, song by Gene Autry, radio show from Roy Rogers, back to the TV with Roy Rogers, and then jumping into the movies once again with Roy Rogers. So that brings us up to 1943. Comic Weekly Man, once again, 1952, brings us into our science fiction section. And now we're starting the section off with some radio shows that are science fiction oriented. Tom Corbett, Space Patrol. And we repeat the very first Flash Gordon radio show because it aired during this time frame on April 27th, 1935, which was a year before the serial came out. But in reality, we are up to chapter 19, so we run that next. Then we have chapter 7 of the serial from Flash Gordon. This is a must-see. The Fabulous World of Jules Verne. It's from 1958, but it's one of the early combining animation and real life actors together to tell a story. And in our science fiction section this week, we have a few movies: Rocket Ship, Destination Moon, and Voyage to the Planet of Prehistoric Women. That brings us into a movie serial, The New Adventures of Tarzan. 2 episodes this week in color from the TV series, The Epic Adventures of Tarzan. And then jump to the radio series of Tarzan. 3 different series there. Which brings us to the superhero section, beginning with Superman. Jumping down to Batman. These are all satire 5-minute clips excellent, funny little clips of how certain movies that we've seen should have ended. And finally, we move on with Prince Namor from the 1966 TV cartoon episodes. We have episode 6, Captain America, chapter 7. We're missing the next chapter for the Lone Ranger Rides Again. We're still looking for it, but there's a little clip here to explain. And in place of that, we have a TV episode in black and white, followed by a color episode, and a color episode of the Green Hornet, the Cisco Kid, and a radio episode of the Cisco Kid, back to the Lone Ranger on the radio, Ren 1010 on the radio. 1950s TV show intros, and our regular Mickey Rooney Hey Mulligan TV episode number 15, and Topper episode number 10, another Life of Riley episode which featured Jackie Gleason, not the familiar William Bendix that we're used to seeing and hearing on the radio. The Adventures of Smilin' Jack began our serial section. We're up to chapter 7. And the Mystery Squadron is ending up this week with chapter 11 and 12. And Dick Tracy returns, chapter 4, which brings us to our radio section with Dick Tracy. Give that a listen to. We have to click on that to make it come up.
Calling all adventure fans, calling all Dick Tracy fans, stand by. Dick Tracy is on the air.
This is from April 25th, 1938. Which is followed by April 26th, 1938.
Detective Adventures brought to you by Quaker Puffed Wheat and Quaker Puffed Rice.
This is going to be followed by whatever became of our weekly show.
Give you lots of trigger fast food energy.
This week we're featuring Arthur Godfrey. Then these are our radio shows. Jack Benny, Amos and Andy, George Burns, Fibber McGee, Aramis Brooks, my friend Irma, Gunsmoke, Suspense. And this week our Mickey Rooney Suspense radio show leads us into a TV suspense show and our movie, or I should say movies, black and white James Stewart movie from 1937, and from 1945 our color selection, State Fair. And to end up our spiritual movie, this is our last or 5th week of the Easter season, and we have the Book of Revelations. And that's it for our playlist.
Dick Tracy, foremost detective of his time, and Vernon Kyle, bad man of the great Northwest, has indeed become desperate. In our last episode, we heard how Kyle and his men in a
Let's get this back to our music.
And took them to a secret hideout in the hills.
This section here is in our CBS Morning section, and you'll be seeing this. Marie Andrews, may your kindness remain. All right, that's about all we can give you for that. You can check out the playlist if you want to see this or any of these other selections. They will be there for a week. And also, as well as our playlist selections, let me show you what's going on for Cinema One and Only in the movies. Okay, let's try to get this out of here. Alright, we have the weekend movies, usually Friday night till Sunday night. And this week's selections. Start out with Peter Pan and A Return to Neverland. And the second selection is the X-Men, Days of Future Past. If we don't have time Friday night, usually Saturdays the catch-up day, we can see both of these and maybe even catch the next one for Sunday. And this would be Batman Returns for this week. And then the last one for this week is Star Wars Return of the Jedi. Or Episode 6 as it is better known by. On our dailies. Start out one disc from each section each day. We are up to season 8 of Smallville. Wow, vicious. And then the second disc each day is Wonder Woman. And that would be from season 3. We're finishing up season 3 now. Do you believe? Right, complete. And when we finish season 3, we will start The Flash. But the old Flash, or older Flash. That'll pick up when the Wonder Woman series finishes. One disc a day for 7 days. And that'll be followed by Gotham. And we had started the complete first season of Gotham. And then we will go to the second season of Gotham. That'll be our third disc a day. And then the fourth disc is the Flash Gordon series from the TV series. And it's the complete series. runs out, we continue with the Star Wars Ewok Adventures. And there are 2 of those. And then there's the Star Wars Animated Adventures of the Ewoks that continue. This is all happening this week, 1 disc a day, and these are the 4th discs, or the 4th designation. And you can see the reason why we're running the Star Wars on the dailies is because we are ending up the Star Wars on the weekend. Or at least ending up the original series when it started. So, I want to thank everybody for taking your time to be with me. This is my, 6th or 7th podcast. So, we're trying new things, got a new backdrop, and we'll be back again with you next week if all goes well. Till then, have a good week. I'll try not to put the camera upside down while I'm doing this. In other words, we'll try to get better at this.